Hey everybody, welcome here to show 155 on Crypto Voices. Mathew Mezinskis, your host here from Eastern Europe, joined here by my co-host Alec Harris from Eastern US. As always, Alec, what's going on, man?
I'm in a new undisclosed location. That's all I can say.
Very good. Perhaps not Eastern Seaboard at the moment.
Who
And
knows?
Halo privacy. Also joined here today by Michel from Nodal. Happy to have you back on, co-hosting. Michel, what's going on?
Hi guys, first time from the new Nodal HQ in Paris.
Oh, congrats. Very nice. And very happy to have our special guest on today, Matěj Žák from Trezor, the CEO of Trezor. So very happy to pick his brain about all things Trezor and hardware wallets today. Matěj, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Hey, everybody.
Great. So let's just get right into it. First, Bitcoin hardware wallet company ever. A lot of great stuff. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of great things in your many years in the hardware wallet market. Maybe just for those that don't know, living under a rock perhaps, Bitcoiners that haven't heard of Trezor, a little bit about your company, what you guys do, and how long you've been in the space.
So as you mentioned, we are the first hardware wallet maker in the world. The idea to build a hardware wallet came from the actual need of the founders of the company. So because some bitcoins were stolen and they were looking for ways to really secure a Bitcoin at scale. For themselves first, but then at scale, and by kind of saying it, yes, we are doing quite okay as a company, and we've been growing heavily, especially lately. We are growing even more, and we have been around for 10 years. So we actually, I think this year in November we will celebrate 10 years anniversary of the company being on the market. And securing Bitcoin for millions of users globally.
Yeah, congrats to you guys. I was just in Prague
Thanks.
for BTC Prague, and was at your offices for Trezor Day. It was really great. Met Pavel, I think, in 2017, the first Honey Badger in Riga. But Joseph and all those guys, it's just great to see you in person and see how you guys have been doing. One of the things with the hardware wallet space is all this debate about sort of open source, fully open sourced, partially open sourced, or whatever you might call ledger. I don't know. It's like this kind of borderline closed source. I see different definitions of these things online. It's important, obviously, in the space to be open source, both on the hardware side and the software side. Or I guess I should say on the software side is kind of the default, but on the hardware side as well. So can you describe a little bit about your guys' sort of protocol and how you've developed the company?
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned the importance of open source. I think we saw it quite clearly with some recent fuss that were happening with our competition, which basically open source was a big part of the discussion. And I think the guidelines are sort of the guiding principle we try to follow is basically try to do as much open source as we can. We cannot do obviously everything. Like specifically when we talk about hardware, there's simply the industry is built in a way that's not fully open source. So we basically work with manufacturers. We need to basically purchase these components for our hardware from manufacturers that are not typically providing their sort of they are not open source, and the way they make the components that we need for the applications in hardware wallets. And that basically led us to also in the Satoshi Labs holding, because we are like a holding of 4 companies, Trezor being one of them. One of the companies is Tropic Square, which tries to build open source chip, open source secure element that we will eventually use in Trezor. So short answer is basically, yeah, we try to go in open source as much as we can. Certain areas it's simply impossible because of the way the industry is built, and therefore we started working on our own open source chip.
Yeah, so There was a trend a while ago of Trezor clones happening. Like I live in France, and there was even a French one called the Arcos Safety. How many of those have you seen, and how does it impact you?
Yeah, so maybe it's a good, it's kind of important for the audience to distinguish two different cases. So, two different, I would say, use cases. So, we built the hardware in an open source way in that sense that we even publish the way the hardware wallet that Trezor is built, right? So everybody who will purchase these over the counter components, they can actually, build it DIY at home, right? So that's not like a malicious behavior, and anybody technical enough is really welcome to do it. That's the whole idea of how this company started. There are other cases that are purely malicious, who where somebody tries to build the hardware, and by the way, it was just like a single cases, right? Like a single digit cases that appear on the market, and that's purely malicious. And we try to, of course, protect in all possible ways users out there from purchasing those.
Is it malicious though if you open everything?
No, I mean, like there were cases that where somebody really sort of faked.
Okay.
They switched the chip, and they pretended it's our company, and basically their users basically bought like fake dressers.
Yeah,
But
right. Okay.
but of course, like, but probably the case you're asking about is really like it's open, and you can build your own hardware based on the manuals that we have on GitHub, openly available.
Yeah, and I'm more thinking about like openly clones, like different, physically different device, obviously different device, which is made based on your software and your hardware.
Got it. Okay, and I'm sorry, getting probably the point. So it's yes, there are the licenses specifically, for example, in our firmware where you can really use the code, you can fork the code, and you can use it in your application as well. The only requirement there specifically in firmware is that you actually use the same license, so anybody can still copy you as well. So the way we kind of like infect the possible fork with the license we want people to use, right? So it's to kind of continue the open source way in that fork as well.
Yeah, so let me ask a slightly different question. I've seen, listen, I don't think anyone has accurate information on this, but I've seen info from Chainalysis that anywhere from like 10% to 15 or 20% of Bitcoin at any given time is on exchanges, right? Which means the predominant uh, allocation of Bitcoin is custodied somewhere, and presumably a lot of that is self-custodied. But it's also very clear that when new entrants come into the market, they tend to go for the easier options, right? Like they'll start on Coinbase or they'll start on an exchange, and then eventually they'll look at other options. So I'm just curious, as you're seeing the trends, right? Do we still see a trend of newer entrants who are less technologically inclined heading over and exploring self-custody?
Yeah, so I think that's the biggest, I would say, challenge and opportunity for us and even our competition, because we have quite good data on, there's more than 400 million users on exchanges, right? Like in some kind of, there's some kind of crypto users, right? Like both Bitcoin and crypto in that like, sort of wider meaning of the word. And if you count what we and our competitors sold in terms of like hardware wallets, that's less than 2% of those 400 million, right? So that's pretty still, I would say, like tiny, let's say, acquisition or switch from exchange users to somebody who would self custody in hardware wallets. So I think it's still like a massive opportunity for us. And what this number tells me, like specifically, or tells us, I think, is we have to do much better as the whole industry of hardware worlds to attract these users, to explain the importance of self custody. Which, by the way, like the all those hacks that happen on and the FTX fails and all these things, that's the best marketing. Uh, in a way, I mean, it's a good marketing. I'm not saying it's great for the whole industry, like in the wider industry, right? Because it's horrible for the industry, of course, because then it's being labeled as fake and they're all full of scams, etc. But in general, I think we need to promote better self custody. Why it's important? And also on one side there's like promotion and education, I would say, and on the other one is really to build very simple products and to make it really easy for the novices, as you mentioned, and that are entering the markets to really join self-custody straight away. And we are, they're doing certain, I would say, we have a lot of initiatives that are trying to tackle this. One of them is also, like that we want to have features such as buy, sell, and exchange directly in for example, Trezor Suite, which is our interface of the Trezor ecosystem. And so by doing that, we kind of, welcome users to say, come directly to the hardware wallet, and you can buy your first Bitcoin even here, right? So yeah, I think slowly we are seeing more novices coming straight to the hardware wallet, but it's still, I think we are still as an industry there's still quite some challenges to be tackled.
And the Trezor suite is pretty easy to use, right? But like it's hard when you're building product to balance, ease of use with security. Like that's a real challenge. And there's, like Apple throws $1 trillion at it to do that elegantly. And so I'm sure as you're looking like, hey, we could make it. Are there times when you're trying to balance making it more secure or easier to use, or how do you find the harmony there?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because that's the one I talked about probably the most in internal and both externally. So I always explain self-custody. I say put it in presentations. I say like self-custody equals security multiplied by privacy multiplied by usability. It's in mathematical sense. If you cross out one of these things, you have basically zero on the other side. So you don't have a self-custody, right? So I kind of say self-custody. For self-custody to really be true self-custody, you really need the privacy part as well, right? Like you cannot really avoid it. Like it's so crucial, because there's no third party, there's no intermediary, there's no like sort of insurance policy in place where it, somebody else would protect you, and it would could be a bit less responsible and say, like somebody will take care of this. No, like the user needs to take care of this, and we as a company need to provide the right tools to really, for them to be able to do it like responsibly well, and still in sort of easy way as well. So what I'm trying to say, like the privacy part is really important. We never really want to do anything that would sort of diminish the privacy part in this. But that's exactly why it's hard. That's exactly why, like in terms of like building product, why it's like pretty pretty complex, and why it's sort of to optimize even, for example, Trezor Suite, you can connect it through Tor network, but to do it well, to do it for, at speed, so the app loads fast enough, so the user doesn't feel like overwhelmed, or they are not bothered by the speed of it. It's hard. It's simply hard. So but I believe, I really personally believe it's an opportunity for us as well as a company, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So we're constantly kind of looking for ways to be best in the game and on the market in this kind of sort of setup or set of challenges.
Okay, so I want to ask a tough one here, and
go ahead.
Obviously, everybody knows that Trezor's very secure. There are some questions sometimes that people have because in these different companies, your competition, they throw about certain terms, which whether it's a secure element or secure enclave or not. But I'll just read it word for word. It was, Pascal from Ledger was on Peter's podcast recently, and they were talking about all these, and also Rodolfo from Cold Cards. So I think you three are all pretty big players in the hardware wallet space. So I just want to read what he says. He says, no, but I think everybody's trying to do a good job. It's all good spirit of competition here. But they don't use a secure element. They use a chip that you would find in your toaster. And so this is why it's so easy to extract the private keys. He's talking about Trezor. And so, of course, all these chips are open source. When we use a secure element, when we Ledger use a secure element, there's a part of it that is closed source, but it comes from the manufacturer of the secure element. If it was just for us, and we actually asked ST Microelectronics many times to open source everything, they don't want to, but that's got to do with their security interests. So there's a lot there. I just want to throw it out there. What's the deal with this?
So maybe starting with the last sentence, yeah, we have the same experience. The big manufacturers such as ST Micro, it will be very difficult to persuade them to open source their chips, because they have use these chips in various applications, and I guess it's in their business interest to do it, but obviously it's not something that we don't like, right? Like so without being very specific, because that's the point. Unfortunately, I can't be specific because we signed NDAs, but we cannot. We really explored in past in various, let's say, in some of the secure elements that we tested. We even explored some vulnerabilities, but we couldn't tell anybody. Like we couldn't really tell. We could tell the company that we were testing, but we couldn't tell anybody else, and it's kind of a pity because we know these are widely used. We could possibly, protect the users by by talking about this vulnerability, but we simply couldn't because of the NDAs. So that's why the idea of the Tropic Square, the open source chip, kind of came alive, because that's where we said, okay, we probably have to fix this if anybody else wouldn't do it. So let's do it like ourselves. So that's, let's say, one part of like the whole industry situation. That's why we try to innovate in the open source chip category. On the criticism of Trezor using what was it, those toaster chips? I think was
his words. Yes.
Yes. Yes, I mean, these are widely used chips. There's nothing very specific about them, but what we I would say invented, and what we try to preach quite a lot, is really using passphrase. So that's a software way how you can protect the private keys anyway, by really creating something uniquely your own, which is basically, by the way, we are the inventors of the BIP39 protocol, which is the way you basically back up the private keys, from this very technical thing into those human readable 12 or 24 words. So that's
HD wallet.
Yes, exactly. And so that's and by adding a passphrase, you basically further you create a new set of keys, and those are derived from from that extra word that you use. So in the interface of Trezor and Trezor Suite, you basically create this passphrase, and at that point, it doesn't really matter whether the hardware, whether it's like there is possibly somehow to extract the keys, because those are different keys from what you actually have through the protection of passphrase. So we really try to say, we always remind this to our users: use passphrase, because that's really the strongest protection out there today, and that's why it's like super important.
Yeah, and we do want to talk about the new open source secure element that you mentioned that's coming out. But I guess just for those that might not know enough about the issue, so that passphrase, I've heard it a lot for many years. I think at least 5 years. When I think there was a lot of, I remember this website wallet.fail. It was tracking a lot of different hardware wallets, and some that they could try to crack the keys or not. But I guess the bottom line, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, none of this has to do, I think, whether it's a secure element or not, none of it has to do with a remote hacking of the device. It's all if your device is physically taken from you, which is absolutely a risk. But once you add once you add the passphrase, that's like a 13th word or a 25th word to the wallet. But then it takes you to an entirely different place, basically a new set of addresses. And it's something that no one could get, even if they could hack through the element. So I think I'm understanding that correctly. But just for where you guys are presently and what you've been dealing with, I imagine like the passphrase is probably like the simplest, easiest workaround if people have any concerns about this. And it is only a local threat, as I understand.
Exactly. I mean, you describe it exactly like correctly. It's only when somebody, let's say the malicious player, would have access to the hardware itself, and plus quite excessive, I would say, knowledge about how to do that, because obviously you need to be also technical a lot, and so yeah, passphrase is the way to mitigate any kind of risk of that type.
Should we move then into the newer chip, as you mentioned? Did I say it right? It's a open source secure element that you're working
exactly
on?
The first iteration of what the company is working on. By the way, like, full disclaimer, I'm not the CEO of Tropic Square. That's a different company, but of course, like, we are sort of possibly the first a serious, I would say, customer of theirs. And of course the company is also founded by founders of Trezor as well. So yeah, so basically we are, I mean, you might be interested, or the audience, in knowing where we are at, because it's a project that takes for a long time. Hardware is a difficult thing. And so we are currently at a testing phase where basically these secure elements are being tested for all kind of attacks, specifically in the application in hardware wallets. So if everything goes well and the test goes well, we hope to include Tropic Square open source secure element in Trezor devices sometime in 2025 in our new devices. That being said, we also work on new hardware wallets. We want to launch new products this year and next year as well. And once we have the open source secure elements, we will include them as well.
Can you tell us more about the upcoming products you have at Trezor?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so of course, I cannot share like full details for to have some nice launches and marketing campaigns once we do. But at Q4 we are planning to announce a new model of Trezor device. In the next let's say 12 months, we plan to do one more new model, and probably at the end of next year or beginning of 2025, we want to launch the third model that we are working on. So it's quite exciting because both Model 1 and Model T have been on the market for a while, and so we want to, we've been innovating quite heavily in software. I know we launched Coinjoin, and then we are of course working constantly on the security, because security is always like a moving target, and that's always something we need to improve. Yeah, we are super excited about the new models, quite honestly, because it's like a big thing for us, obviously, because we are a hardware company.
Can you go a little more to the Coinjoin integration? Like, first of all, what was the process there, and how has the adoption been?
Yeah, so we basically were looking for how to broaden the range of services that we can offer to the market. I think that was the general the main idea. That being said, also we discussed the privacy, so the importance of privacy and self-custody. So that was center point. Like we said, like let's strengthen some one of the three pillars basically that the self-custody is staying on, so or like is being built on. So we thought, yeah, Coinjoin would be a cool feature that we'd like to work on. I think in total it took us around less than 3 years, so it's pretty heavy, like a development, because it's pretty hard. There were a lot of challenges that we had to tackle in terms of like it's quite innovative. Like nobody's really done it, like implementing Coinjoin with the hardware wallet. So directly. So I guess that was waiting for us, and so that's why it took a while. But so far, yeah, the adoption is looking good. We definitely have many users interested in using the feature. So we see nice usage there. That being said, we also had some like technical issues for like being a new product. So it's like we are kind of slowly kind of, I think, promoting it more and more, so really all of our users can enjoy it.
So if I remember correctly, you're using the Wasabi Coinjoin implementation. Is it Wasabi 2?
I believe, yes.
Okay.
I think so. We are basically using the latest tech.
Okay. And why this one and not one of the other Coinjoin implementations?
Yeah, so we are looking for a strong partner that would help us deliver obviously the privacy and the usability of it. Again, like on those three words, security, privacy, usability, will be probably mentioned many times in this chat. But so we thought Wasabi had the best UX, to be honest, like the best user experience and the best liquidity as well, in terms of how many users are using it, because that's really important. Because when you join the Coinjoin round, it's basically the privacy is better if you have more players doing it. So Wasabi was like a clear choice for us. And also, like managerially or like personally, the connections are there, and the cooperation was pretty good. So all those things worked out, I think, for both of us.
And what do you think about the cooperation with Chainalysis?
Well, I would say there's no cooperation. It's just simply Wasabi as being the coordinator simply blocks certain UTXOs entering. If they are like marked dangerous, they simply say no, like you cannot conjoin. It's not us who is doing it. It's basically Wasabi is the main coordinator. There's nothing we can do about this. But I mean, they are the coordinators, so they are responsible for what's happening in the mix, in the process. So there's nothing we can really do about that.
Do you let your users choose the coordinator they are using? Because I know there are some alternative Wasabi coordinators.
For now, there's just one in our interface, but yeah.
I'm also a big proponent of Coinjoin, but just in my personal experience, I found that where I've used previously Coinjoin UTXOs and then engaged with a counterparty, even in like a completely overt relationship, there's almost a punitive side of that relationship where I have to explain, oh, well, why are you using Coinjoin, right? And it sometimes incurs more scrutiny. And I know, like, we could say, well, you shouldn't be engaging with OTC desks that ask those kind of questions, right? But sometimes you need to have on and off ramps. And so, are you seeing this trend of like increased scrutiny on people who use CoinJoin, or is it if everyone's CoinJoining, then no one's CoinJoining?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any trend here. We're like, to be honest, but in terms of, again, I think like the privacy of self custody is and of, let's say, it's like a quality of money, right? Like the quality of money, it should be private in a way. So if we can, as a company, enhance by providing tools, enhance the usability, sorry, like enhance this experience for users by providing good tools that are easy to use, and make their money more private, then I think it's a good call, to be honest, right? So but quite honestly, like, we don't have enough data to say if there is a trend going on or no for now.
That's good.
Yeah, a lot of these things are super early, and it's
Correct.
important for users and listeners to keep in mind. I mean, CoinJoin itself has been around for many years, obviously, but if you think about the grand scheme, like you said, 400 million roughly exchange users, and then whatever that might be, a very small fraction of that actually use hardware wallets. Whatever fraction of that mixes coins, uses coin joins. I'm not sure, but perhaps it's a smaller fraction still. It's really, really early, and it's hard to judge sometimes, like where's the best direction to take your products. So yeah, I mean, how do you guys think about the process for the markets that you want to serve?
Yeah, so I think when you are doing something new, and really, I think you can even like Bitcoin in terms of like bigger, older markets, it's still like a fairly new innovation, let's say, like an innovation of money. So I think it's still, if you want to do something first, if you want to be the first on the market, and that has probably much wider or more massive challenges than when you're just following something. So in general, I think trying to innovate in self custody is hard, but again, it's also the opportunity, right? So it's because it's hard, not everybody does it, and not everybody does it well. So we are trying to do it the best we can, and really to be the best in the market. And I think if and only, again, like sort of from the free market perspective, and if you are doing it well, more users will be persuaded and will come to self custody, right? So I think those it is really our kind of dream to make that. I mentioned less than 2% are from all those crypto users are and hardware wallets. So I think we need to do much better as the whole industry. And by launching these new products and services, as we do, we really want to attract much more, and basically have a better conversion as the whole industry on these crypto users. And by the way, I say specifically crypto because from our research, we even know that like the novices don't really tell the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, right? So it's for them, it's the same thing, and so we also have to adjust our communication and the way we attract them and the way we explain and preach, self-custody to them, so they find it useful and basically, more secure.
It's a funny battle I've been waging for 6 years on this show. I mean, I had the Crypto Voices podcast long before that kind of became an illegal word in Bitcoin land, but I just don't care. But yeah, I can imagine. And I actually noticed it when I was at your offices at the presentation, and I'm sure this is the case in many businesses that are, let's say, primarily Bitcoin or got their start in Bitcoin. But it is a word that you still are going to use because most of the people do associate, cryptocurrency or just that word with what you're doing primarily, even more than Bitcoin. And I don't think it's blasphemous to say that. It's just kind of a fact for now.
Yeah, honestly, I very much agree. I'm not big fan of all these like fights, these like hardcore fights in the community. I think it doesn't bring any good to the market, and it doesn't bring any good in like sort of explaining and preaching, the value of Bitcoin and crypto to the world. So, and I believe even for us as a company that we really want to attract um, talent that is not purely Bitcoin maximalist, because we really need to have broader knowledge of everything that's going on. Yes, we are conservative as a company, so we are not just like jumping on the next trend, but I think it's good for the diversity of the company. I think it's good for the diversity of the market, and again, just the free market forces, it will just basically clear out the scams and the mess eventually. And the stronger players that make sense will simply win, and that's been the case for Bitcoin, as we obviously see, and that's great. And but anybody else or any other innovation use case, whatever crypto is like, I mean, it's welcome to participate in the market, and we will see how that goes based on the basically the demand.
If we can, I just want to move back again to the chip, to your new chip that's coming out. And again, I know this is a long timeline, but Michel sent me some of the features, like tamper resistance, voltage glitch detector, temperature detector, electromagnetic pulse detector. It sounds like a lot compared to other commercial chips. Or what's the thought process again? A little bit more on that.
So I think I don't have access to like the very specifics. Again, I'm just disclaimer. I'm not the CEO of the company, and I'm not engineer either. So I'm not probably technical enough. But
Sure.
basically, the way this came to the world is, yeah, we wrote a spec as a company, something let's say the full spec that we would like to expect as the ideal, the best possible secure element out there. And then the company's leadership took it, and basically they start working with what's sort of on the feasibility of things, right? Like, so some things might be too stretch in the spec, and some are just more feasible. So and that's what we are seeing right now, and that's why I think it takes so long, right? Because it's in software. You make something, you ship it within a week, you can fix it next week, and it's all agile and it's all great. But in hardware, these things like take really really long time, and also because it's really hardcore tech, right? It's not just like taking some over the counter components and I don't know, stitching them on PCB and that's it. But it's more, it is really, you are innovating in the in the really core of the core, I would say. So it's been quite hard.
Any idea of the timeline we're looking at for this chip? Because I heard like it's coming in 2 years, for at least 2 years. So what
Yeah,
should
the
we
idea is would
what
be
it should realistically expect?
realistically should be 2025, and specifically already in Trezor. That's what we are hoping
Okay.
for.
Another line of questions we had were kind of like the latest on software wallet integration. For OGs or people that have been listening to this show for a long time, things can move quickly, and you get out of or you don't move some of your cold storage for a couple of years, and all of a sudden, like, everything has changed when you come back on. And you think about the different software wallets you can use. I know you guys have had your suite for a long time now, many years now. multi-sig, I don't know, just doing things in like an easier way than they were done before? Is there any other sort of new features that you guys are looking at?
Yeah, so we work with a partner company. Again, one of those four companies are Satoshi Labs Holding, and they're called Invity, and they are implementing all kind of features in Trezor Suite. So it's interface that they bring features such as buy, sell, exchanges, but also quite recently, I think it'd been for a while now, but we have a DCA. So basically, you can dollar cost averaging. So basically, you can add your credit card and start purchasing Bitcoin on a regular basis. So that's one, I think, of the cool features that the new Bitcoiners, the new generation of Bitcoiners can enjoy. um, and the big one we are working on as well is specifically with Trezor Suite is we call it sort of like a new generation of Trezor Suite, where we really want to improve quite significantly the whole interface. So have much better UX and UI. We need better sort of portfolio tracking, where we want to bring new better dashboards and graphs where users can track sort of their additions to the portfolio over time. And we also got recently launched a mobile app, which is interesting, because then you really can have the overview of your huddle funds in your pocket, and yeah, so that's something that we are working on quite hard as well. And because of the new hardware that we want to launch in the upcoming year, is it will be wireless. So then you can really use the Bluetooth connection to connect Trezor with your phone, which is basically not possible now. Well, we are adding. Well, it's possible with Android phone, but with iOS, it's simply iOS doesn't allow to connect external hardware through the cable with this. So the mobile app will be quite crucial part of the Trezor ecosystem.
So how do you guys decide which chains to support?
Yeah, so that's a big one. That's a big, I would say, challenge for us as a company. So we basically try to look at things like usage, also sort of like an interest of the user base in certain networks, because we in general, like, we are more conservative than, let's say, our competition. I think in adding coins, we are not Bitcoin only. I think that's clear, but also we have Bitcoin only firmware, for example. So we kind of want to address both the Bitcoin only market, where you really can just get rid of anything else but Bitcoin, and you can just enjoy the Bitcoin only interface and Bitcoin only device, but through the Bitcoin only firmware. But basically, yeah, we try to add, and we will add more networks over the time as we move along. But we are certainly more conservative. So sorry, I'm just like to reply simply. I think it's basically we wait a little bit where something new comes in. We looked at the market cap, the usage, etc., and then we start supporting that given network.
Yeah, interesting. So do you have token projects that come to you and try to convince you to support them?
All the time.
Yeah.
Like I probably have like 5 LinkedIn messages per week to somebody asking like whether we could implement XY. But simply, for the company of our size, and we've been there. We've been there before. Even I think before the company was there before I joined the company. I think it was 2017 or something. Yeah, before the one of the big spikes was. It was there was this ICO frenzy, right? Like if you remember, and Trezor also kind of was tried the company tried to implement new networks, but a lot of them just died out within within next the 6 to 12 months. And it's a lot of effort. Like you have to do it in a way. I mean, of course, we care for security. So when we implement new networks, we want to make sure that everything's done well, right? That both security and UX wise, and so the user interface is nice, and it's being like very usable or user friendly. So, and that obviously takes a lot of effort. I always say there are no small features, because even small additions to the products really require thorough thinking and a lot of work. And yeah, so it's just like sort of the return on investment is, we are a bit more conservative there, because you could simply do a lot of things and then pay a heavy sort of maintenance expenditure, let's say.
I'm pretty sure you support Monero, right?
We do in firmware, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I never like pass muster with Maximalist, because I believe strongly that Monero provides a useful tool. But it's also like definitively the bad guy coin, right? Like it's like the criminal coin, worse than anything else. And so when you guys make a decision to offer Monero support, do you receive scrutiny from law enforcement, or was there any kind of adverse reaction to that?
I'm not aware of anything like that happening. And in general, I think in more, like, let's say, more general approach to this. I mean, you could say there's a lot of bad money in fiat or Bitcoin and et cetera, et cetera. And but I would say, like, who we are to tell, like who we are as a company to say, right? Like it's really, we just provide the tools and the users can do whatever you do with them. It's not our job, I think, in the world to say what's good and what's bad. You really just try to provide the tools that are just, and well, in terms of Bitcoin, better money, but also like better transfer value, etc., etc. So I simply think it's not our, it's not our, how to say, like, it's not our, it shouldn't be us to judge things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. But at the same time, we know that some exchanges have come under pressure and delisted tokens, right? So what you're saying is it's not easy, right? When there's pressure to comply.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, with what happened with the CC, etc., we will see how that whole thing evolved, right? Like then we are just simply waiting now. What's going to happen? But we probably need for a bit more, let's say, like data. What's going on?
So you said Monero is supported in the firmware. It means it's not supported in Trezor Suite, right? And you have to use some third-party software.
Yes, and I hope I'm correct on the firmware things. I would have to check our own website, because there is just like so many coins. But yes, there are certain, let's say in general, like there are certain networks that we support in firmware, and you have to use a third party app to be able to use that given network.
Okay, and I don't remember. Do you also have a Bitcoin only firmware or only?
Yes, we do. We do. You can use Bitcoin only firmware for, the Bitcoin maxis can enjoy Bitcoin only firmware with us.
Yeah, so I will let the Bitcoin maxi in me speaking now. Don't you think that actually supporting many chains and coins distracts you from supporting new features in Bitcoin, like say multi-sig, mini-script, and so on?
It's all about prioritization, and priority and Bitcoin is for us, like, number one. And we have actually proved to do it. We supported Taproot quite early on. We supported Coinjoin early, as much as we can, etc. So I think we are a Bitcoin company for sure. We are not Bitcoin only company. And to be able to attract those 400 million users and possibly even turn them into Bitcoiners, because by the way, it's a very often the case. Like there's a lot of people basically come for crypto and they end up in Bitcoin, or mainly as a majority of their sort of funds are in Bitcoin. So again, I think it would be wrong for us not to do that, and because it's ultimately good for Bitcoin, it's good business, it's good, it's I think it's just, and by the way, like by good business, I mean also better product, because the fact that we are able to invest in innovation is really important. But the way we invest in innovation is basically making money, right? So we are not VC funded. We don't have anybody telling us what we are supposed to do. We basically make money out of selling Trezors and selling good products, what I believe are great products, and basically reinvesting these funds into making them even better, and investing in innovation, right? So I can think it's quite important.
I'm just Curious, if you can talk about it, how does the headcount look like dedicated Bitcoin people versus the total headcount of the company?
It's probably not possible to say it like this because of course, we have like a Bitcoin only projects, then we have other projects, but specifically in engineering, I would currently say 80% of the engineers are, Bitcoin aficionados, I would say. But again, like as I mentioned before, I think for the diversity of the industry and of our company specifically, it's important that we have also specialists in other networks. It's simply the case, and I think it's also good for the discussions. It's good for kind of trying to learn from each other, etc., etc. So I think it's important for the diversity to have other people. I mean other expertise in the discussion involved.
So I want to ask you about Ledger Recover, but I don't want to do it. I know we don't need to talk about other companies, competitors, products here and stuff, but
It's okay.
and that's not something that you required of the show. I'm just saying that, like, obviously we want to talk about what you guys are doing, but this is, I think, pretty controversial for a lot of Bitcoiners for sure. And in my opinion, it does go back to, again, it totally goes back to the funnel of getting, more Bitcoiners and more people into self-custody, more people
Exactly.
understanding how Bitcoin works, where you have, again, half a billion people maybe using exchanges. Then you have, like you said, 2% maybe using custody, maybe less Coinjoin, whatever. But the moment that you know, allow some sort of API access, even though this is a sharded, encrypted version of your seed, to me, it just seems like very scary. Like, I would just never want even that product, but I would also never even want the potential for that product. I know I haven't fully done my own DD on how their service works there, but it does seem a little bit scary. So I don't know. Am I wrong there, or is that what you're hearing, or what do you guys think about the general idea?
I think quite obviously you will probably hear me say yes. I think we think it's wrong, right? Like basically changes the whole idea of the way we think of self custody. It is even question how if whether we can call it self custody, but um, so I think what we agree with that given competitor on is to we want to simplify the way you store your private keys and how you can really make it really easy for millions and millions of users. So I think that's the big question that they ask themselves is like, well, they ask I think two questions. So how do we make it really simple so you don't have to worry, and it's something similar to I'm as a user, let's say, very familiar with, basically trusting a third party, such as a bank, to do that. Um, so that's one question, and I think the other question they asked was like, well, how we make a subscription on hardware? How we make sure that all these users we have, they will send us some money monthly and not just like a one-off payment. I think both are valid questions. Both are, like a well, the first one for the let's say acquisition on the market, and the other one for like a retention, or let's say like a business sort of revenue stream that is basically based on subscription, etc. So I think those are good questions. I think the answers are not good at all. I think we would never send encrypted keys. I mean, albeit encrypted, to some third party where you, by the way, have to KYC, right? So I think, again, like speaking of privacy, well, the KYC is part of it, and also again, like sending the keys over the internet. Well, that's the whole point of a hardware wallet. That's the whole point, like why what we preach, right? Like never take those keys take those keys online. Um, so yeah, I think I mean we launched Shamir Backup as a solution, how you can spread sort of the risk, and how you can I guess you guys are familiar with the product, but maybe I'll try to just like recap very quickly. So
Yeah, please.
basically you can you can create multiple shares of the backup of your private keys, and a certain amount of shares you need as a threshold to recover the master secret. So example, Trezor gives you 5 shares of the private keys. you store them somewhere, and then you only need 3 to be able to recover fully the private keys. And by the way, I think this competitor was using Shardner Backup because we are open source, so they were using the system, or let's say that they used the code to be able to do that, to expand on with that their own service on top of this. So.
This is playing devil's advocate, but are there some people that you would recommend not using self-custody?
Honestly, I think if you are starting with crypto, Bitcoin, etc., so I think it's totally fair. I think it's totally fair. Start with, if you are really not, let's say, interested enough to deep dive on the day one. It's probably much safer if you start with some super custody or whatever solution like Revolut, Robinhood, or whatever, right? So I think it's fine. I really think it's the whole journey, because again, self custody is about, the person is in the middle of the security model. They need to understand, if they are not educated enough, the risk of themselves like shooting themselves in the leg is quite high. So I think the education part, where you really understand what's happening, is quite important, or is very important. So I think for those who are not maybe willing to invest in themselves and educating themselves on how these things work, I think it's probably better to start with custody. I think it's fine. But I think I would also recommend everybody, once they amass, let's say, bigger percentage of their funds, of their assets, whatever they have, I think it's definitely recommendable. Certainly they should move into self custody for sure, because simply the coins on with the custodians are not safe enough, right? So I think they should invest into themselves, and educate themselves on self custody, and moving there as early as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, Alex Mezinskis was arrested yesterday, right? So that says a lot about trusting someone else with your coins. But so you guys must get people who have mismanaged their wallet and they reach out to you with tragedies too, right? Like what's that like?
It doesn't happen very often.
Really?
I think it doesn't happen very often because we try to build the products in a way where you really how to say, like, you protect the user by building solid products. But it happens once in a while, of course. It can happen because also there's phishing attacks happening. I think it's a problem for the whole industry. I think it's not just us. It's definitely our competitors as well, and obviously that sucks as well because. Again, as I said, security is a moving target. So whenever there's something new, the phishing attacks, improve as well, etc. So it's always like a little bit, it's like this game going on. Um, but yeah, I mean, the question how it feels, I think it's painful, right? Like, of course, it sucks. I mean, because um, again, like, I think a lot of people in the industry have personal experiences with like losing some coins due to some kind of mistake, and it's of course it's sort of heartbreaking in this sense, because also we know a lot of bitcoins have been lost already for good, right? So that's also that's also the case in the world, and so yeah, so not to maybe end this up so pessimistically, but yes, I think again, building amazing products can solve this, right? Like really making sure users understand and the products are easy to use. Then I think that this is what we are trying to do to mitigate those cases.
As kind of a public service announcement to everyone, and I see scams all the time. It's kind of like one of the things that I do during the day, right? Is in that counter scam world. Can you talk through some of the scam mechanisms that are related to Trezor wallets that you guys have seen, just as like a warning to users?
Yeah, so what we see, for example, and apparently the most widely, how to say, present, I would say, is really somebody trying to say, well, write those 12 words right here into the web browser. Just leave them here. We will send you some Bitcoin, as a reward or something like this, some bullshit like this. So big no, like never ever write those words, online. Never take a photo of them. Never share it with anybody. Our people, our support agents would never ever ask you about those words. So big no nos.
Never say them out loud as you write them down, especially if you have Amazon Alexa on in your house.
A very good point. Very good point. So all these things, like, big no no. It should never be like digitalized online. Definitely not, etc. So right. So it's probably the biggest sort of area. The other one is there's like fake apps, like that you could download on both Android, and sorry, Apple, but the Apple Store and both Google Play. So those happen as well. You have also desktop apps that you could download. So users should be worried really about the domain from which they are, downloading certain apps, etc. But mainly what I said, like never give them to anybody.
And your domain is Trezor.io.
Exactly correct. And also like purchase, Trezors for from us. Like purchase the Trezor directly from either Trezor.io or from one of our resellers, which we list on our website. By the way, including the big ones such as Amazon.
Yeah. And then I would imagine be wary of like fake support profiles, right? That are pretending to support you, or impersonations on social media, like that kind of stuff too.
Exactly. Like funny story. When I was, named, or when I accepted the role of a CEO, very happily, I think 1 month in, I got my first Instagram impersonator with I think 7,000 followers, which is much bigger than I have. I have like a probably 100 or something like this. So, and then funny enough, Stake, one of the founders of the company, kind of said, "Buddy, you made it. You have your own impersonator now."
Yeah.
As a joke. But yes, I'm sorry. Coming to the point, yes, I think it's quite important that yes, like again, our agents would never ask you about those words, and there are fake people on the socials specifically, where they reach out and they try to pretend that they're some kind of friend or some kind of advisor or some bullshit like that.
That's a very interesting, fascinating topic. I can imagine um, you guys have dealt with that a lot. Or I guess that's kind of my question. Like, we talked about some of the, sounds like happily, not too many, customers are suffering with actually losing their words or not, backing up their wallet appropriately or something like that. But kind of in combination with the penultimate question that I asked about, this service that one of your competitors is offering, have you guys thought any more about or any differently about some other way to back up your seed, even in addition to, you know, Shamir sharing or something else?
Yeah, no, not really. I think what we saw is, by the way, we sold out all the Shamir, because we have this like metal backup solutions on our eShop for Shamir. We sold all of them that day. We usually sell just a few per, I would say, almost like a year, or not in a year. We sell quite a lot, but like, let's say they all sold out super fast. So what it showed us is basically like, yeah, let's focus on Shamir. Let's promote it better. I think it might feel advanced to certain users, but actually it's quite easy to use. It's really well done, I believe, in firmware, and in the ways you interact sort of with the device. So I think it's yeah, well, it's really a great feature. And I think we mainly discussed how we can promote it better, how we can explain that this is the way, etc. But there were no immediate, let's say, ideas on service such as this.
As far as multi-sig goes, do you guys have any recommendations, or how? What are your thoughts on, what users can take advantage of, in conjunction with your wallet and other software wallets?
Yeah, so they can users can use Trezor with Electrum, for example, to multisig. But we don't plan to, for now, to support multisig directly in Trezor Suite, which is Trezor Suite is the interface of, again, of Trezor devices. So there are no immediate plans to do it. We might eventually, but again, I think we've, the idea is that we focus on the novices on the market right now, and for them it's maybe a bit too advanced for now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that is the best way that you can securely store like for the long term. But it is complicated. Like I've had experts even tell me when I was trying to set it up, like on
Correct.
command line based, like be careful what you're doing because it's complicated. Now it's getting much better. It's getting much better, but it's still a complicated process.
Yeah, so there's by the way a sentence we use internally and between product and engineering, but basically in R&D. And I'm sorry, I won't give credit to the person because I forgot their name, but it's basically this sentence, right? So it's security at the expense of usability come at the expense of security. Meaning, if it's a bit, if it's a way too difficult to use something, you probably there is a big chance you will shoot yourself in the leg in a way that you will probably decrease the security by making it too complicated, right? So that's always the balance you try to strike to make things easy for users, so they don't really have to worry why certain things are done, on the interface that way. But also, yeah, there is this risk. Basically, there is this risk of things being too complicated for our users.
So it was great again being in Prague last month. I guess it was started last month, right?
Mhm.
The scene there in Prague obviously is famous, I think, because of your company, because of a lot of conferences that are there, even before the Kucher brothers. But are you feeling pretty bullish about the scene in Prague? Is it good for your company? Is it what's it like with all the young Bitcoiners in Prague these days?
Well, maybe I can ask you whether you feel, whether you felt it was bullish.
I thought it was. I thought it was. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it just seems like a great part of Europe to be doing business. I'm sure on for many levels, cost wise and other things. But it was it's a very good feeling to be there. A lot of excitement.
I have the same feeling. I was very positively surprised by how many people, by the turnout at the conference. I think it was great. We were a little worried about doing things like that in bear market times, and the turnout was amazing. I think already on the industry day, where basically that was the first day of the conference, where you have mainly like sort of like a B2B or let's say industry people hanging out. It was already quite busy, and I was like, wow, that's nice. So I'm really wondering what's the next day is going to bring. And yeah, there was a ton of people, and it felt very busy, and some of the keynotes were really full, and that made us very happy. And a bit more sort of egocentrically, yeah, since we are Czech based company, of course a lot of people know us there. So it was also a great vibe for us, specifically because there was like people basically yeah, patting our backs and saying good job guys and looking forward to the new things and new products. So yeah, I mean, it was great feeling, quite honestly, if I can add that personal emotional note. But I think it's also nice because like what it kind of shows us as well is like, I hope I can say this, but like I feel like we are a bit like sort of we have loyal users. I think they like us, they like our brand. I think we owe this to our founders of the company, who basically again started this whole thing, this whole industry of self-custody and hardware wallets. But also Slash, one of the founders, also started the first mining pool, right? So he's really the OG big with a big O. So it's
Hmm.
like, I think this legacy is there, and I believe that we are sort of the good guys on the market in this sense, and I think we are maybe a bit conservative in terms of like business growth, etc. But like also, I think we are uh, also getting some credit for doing the good decisions along the way. So it felt really good. And also I really enjoyed really even the competitors, really, like we chatted at their industry day, and it was fun. Like we had nice conversation about their features, our features. We had one of the competitors coming to our booth and asking if he can give them like a hoodie, just a hoodie, which was like super nice. And but I like it. I really, again, like I think we are kind of in a new industry, and like let's not fight over peanuts. Let's just make the cake much bigger, right? Like, so that's so important, and I really enjoyed this vibe, and so that was nice.
Absolutely, got to be positive about it. I mean, there's so much
for sure.
There's so much optimism, I think, in this industry compared to the legacy TradFi stuff, and it just continues to be that way. So
exactly, and I think it's really important.
Yeah. Well, listen, Matěj, this is really great. As we close it, any final thoughts, and where can our listeners find out more about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we are launching some new products, new hardware products this year. So I'll probably say we will keep you posted. Keep an eye on whatever we are doing on our socials, on our site. We are super excited about this because it's really like a big, I would say, milestone for the company. It's a big milestone for our also like a hardware development. So we are super excited about introducing the new product line. Also, a lot of accessories that we will launch as well. So yeah, that's a bit like a teaser for what's coming with us. And thanks a lot for having me, guys. And I will look forward to some conversations in the future about anything Trezor.
And any links?
Trezor.io is probably the number one link. For me personally, I mostly hang out on, I guess, LinkedIn and Twitter. So yeah, people can find me there. On Instagram, I just post paragliding videos because that's what I do in my free time. So it's more like a fun thing.
Excellent.
But yeah, Trezor.io is the important.
We'll link to all of it. Matěj, thanks a lot for joining. Really a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for your time.